So I started playing RuneScape back in 2009. I didn't quite get to live in the golden age of the game, but it was still a great game for its time, and it's pretty much all I did when I was a kid growing up. Pretty much everyone from my school played the game, and I guess we really didn't know how good of a game it was until they ruined it. RuneScape was this perfect little game that had no microtransactions, and you had to really earn everything you did. And it was a thing where getting an achievement on this game would take, say, 200 hours. And it was kind of a crazy thing to go for something like a skill cape back in the day. And people would come up to you and say, "Nice cape." And it's something obviously that doesn't really happen anymore. But it was a game that was perfect how it was, and it took a lot of time and dedication to achieve anything. Especially certain skills like agility, rune crafting, or slayer were some of the longest and most prestigious skills to max. So let's talk about how they ruined the game. So in 2011, they made a members loyalty program, and honestly, this started out fine. I didn't really think anything much of it. It was just a new update that came into the game back then. I was only 10 or 11 years old, right? So it was one of those things where I was just like, whatever, it's an update. And basically members would get these things, these points, these loyalty points for being a member. And you could use these points to unlock things like emotes, different outfits, titles, that was new. And then there were auras, which were a newer item at the time, and I really didn't know what to think of these. Now, basically, auras were this thing in, I think it was called the pocket slot, and they were these little abilities, I guess, that you could activate, and they would just provide you with a bunch of bonuses. I believe some were even cosmetic, but back in the day, they would, for example, there was this thing called the Greater Brawler Aura, and this would pretty much just increase your melee accuracy by 5%. So it was just an overall buff that was added to the game for kind of like no reason. And there would be all these different ones for skilling, different ones that would give you experience, and it was just a weird system. But you needed to consistently stay a member to get these points and buy these auras. So I guess it was an incentive there to kind of keep people to continue their membership, I guess. But that's kind of just the start. In 2012, kind of the year the game fully died, they released the classic Squeal of Fortune. And it was pretty much this wheel that you could log in every day. I think you'd get a couple free spins a day, but you could also buy them. And pretty much you would log in, spin this wheel, and you could win, say, an experience lamp. You could win 200 million GP in cash, or you could win a cosmetic item. There were just prizes that you won for no reason. So soon after the Squeal was released, you could end up buying spins for real life money, which was something that the developers, the original developers back in the day quoted: "We want RuneScape to be a game where everyone has the same chance, regardless of their wealth in real life." And yeah, this was broken now because you could buy these spins, 10 spins at the price of $4.99, or 200 spins at the price of $99.99. This was obviously back in 2012, so yeah, that was a lot of money. And you know, if you spent $100 on these spins, you could get so many experience lamps, so much money, and just jump ahead of the competition. So basically on that day, XP really didn't mean anything anymore, because at the end of the day, you could just buy it in real life money. There was this YouTuber named A Friend, and back in the day, he literally spent, I don't even know how much money it was, like $30,000 or $40,000, and basically maxed an account with only using the Squeal of Fortune. I think it was something like 70-80 hours of in-game time of him just spinning the wheel, and he maxed an account. Like, what? Also, obviously with this wheel, you could earn like rare items, different cosmetic items, or just pure cash. So this Squeal of Fortune wheel basically took the entire aspect of RuneScape out of the picture. So there was no longer grinding and earning your skills. There was no longer earning your money because you could just win it from this wheel. So the entire RuneScape game, you could just get all the accomplishments in the game by playing this wheel and spending money. Yeah, and then 3 months later, they added the Solomon's General Store and rune coins. Basically what this is you could purchase rune coins to get more cosmetic items, more random things. I think there were these things called legendary pets, different overrides, whatever it might be, but more microtransactions, as if they haven't already added enough. So a lot of players sort of wanted to continue playing RuneScape, and they would brush like things like this off of their shoulders, and they just wouldn't take part in the microtransactions. So RuneScape wanted to, make all of the people who grinded and earned all of their skills kind of just feel even worse. So rune crafting was one of the most iconic and most prestigious skills in the game, maybe maxing at about 20 to 25,000 experience per hour and taking like 300 to 400 hours to get yourself from level 1 to 99. But in 2012, they had to ruin that too by adding the Runespan. Basically what the Runespan was you just randomly went into this other dimension, other world. You didn't need to gather pure essence, and all you had to do is basically click on different colors and you would craft these runes. But they would be fake runes that you couldn't take outside of the world. I don't really know. It was kind of the weirdest update ever. Moving on, 2012, November, the Evolution of Combat came out. Now, this is probably the update that you hear all of the time, the update that killed the game, and it really is true. Basically, people were saying in a survey that the reason they were either quitting RuneScape or joining another game is because combat was boring. And I think about it now, looking back in 2012, combat was pretty boring. Like some of the bosses that we had, I can think of like Queen Black Dragon, maybe God Wars. But other than that, yeah, bossing was pretty boring. It was nothing like it is today in old school. It was more or less just, put melee prayer on, eat your food, and that's the whole boss. There was nothing mechanically challenging back then, nothing even close to like the Inferno, right? So there was really no challenge with PVM as much back then, right, as compared to what they've done with old school. So they thought instead of like trying to make the game more mechanically challenging but keep the combat system, they would just rewrite the entire combat system. And I guess they looked at other games like World of Warcraft or other MMOs that were popular at the time and tried to copy them pretty much. So they took our basic, click on an enemy, they attack, you attack. You can, move around, you can use prayers, different spells, different gear. But no, they just thought that was way too basic, scrapped it, and they just added an ability bar and a bunch of ability bars. I think you could get like 5 or 6 at once. It's just like, why? Like, why would you do that? Basically what this did was kill combat in the game because nobody knew how to do it. You randomly, you played this game for 10 years, you were a master at the combat system, and then they add an ability bar with all these random abilities that do this and do that, and you have to click them all each time. So it made combat, which was a fairly AFK-able thing where you click on a monster, maybe eat a piece of food, but now you have to like spam your keyboard and mash these abilities. It was just a mess, man, and this really ruined like PKing, player killing, was pretty much like one of the biggest parts of the game. People made specialized accounts in order to, be a dominant in the wilderness and kill people. These accounts were completely ruined overnight because PKing didn't exist anymore because you had an ability bar. There was no more skill to PKing. It was kind of just smashing your abilities and hoping you win. It was a mess. I remember trying PKing when it first came out, and like it was just it was just funny to watch. I'll just put it that way. Basically ruined spec weapons, so like things like dragon claws, another really popular thing people used in PKing. Because there was abilities now, it got rid of special attacks. So dragon claws went from being a very, very valuable item in the game to basically being worthless. And it really ruined combat, especially for things like Slayer, for a very long time. And this wasn't fixed properly until like years later. Like I remember like the whole weaknesses and everything, it was just a mess for so long. And it was one of those things where me, myself, and lots of other people just couldn't get used to this ability bar just randomly being added to your screen, and you had to make one. This is another thing that really annoyed me too, is you had to custom make it, and you had to make one for magic, you had to make one for range, and you had to make one for melee, and it's just like no guidance at all. Seeing how the riots were back then, and players threatening to quit the game, and like you have somebody who's been a dedicated fan for 10 years saying, yeah, I think I'm gonna quit the game, and like they don't do anything about it. It's kind of crazy to me that they literally let this slide and happen and get to become in the game. I tried to stick with the game for a while. I was more of a skiller back then, so I didn't touch combat all too much, but yeah, it just sucked. Like when I fully tried it out, it was just very easy. Like it made everything really easy. And another thing I found really funny too is when you used magic with the abilities, it didn't use runes, and the same thing with ranged. When you used abilities, it didn't use your arrows. So you could have like 5 arrows and be good for your Slayer task, or enough runes to cast 5 spells, and that was pretty much it. It was really weird, man. And then to top it all off, back in 2012 too, they changed the way armor looked in the game. And RuneScape armor always had this nice classic look to it, and they just gave it this whole World of Warcraft-esque style. And to me, it was just super ugly. It just didn't look like it belonged there at all. And then they re-released the old armor, but now you had to buy it with rune coins. Can you imagine that? Like, oh, it was just crazy, man. Like, I don't understand, like, who was in charge of this game. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the way that they run old school now, like, none of this crap would have, like, slid, like, slide. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy that this even happened. Well, 2014 came along, and of course they fixed a little bit of the bugs and a lot of the clunkiness of the evolution of combat, but they wanted to get rid of the Squeal of Fortune because people were so angry that you could just buy your way to the top. So they got rid of the Squeal of Fortune, and they introduced the Treasure Hunter, which is the exact same thing. So instead of spinning a wheel now, you just unlock chests. So nothing changed at all. And it just honestly got worse with more treasure hunter promotions and bonus XP and this and that. And yeah, you could literally just buy your XP, and like RuneScape and achievements didn't mean anything at all. In 2016, they released Runemetrics, and you have to pay for this. And Runemetrics is basically a way worse version than Runelite. What Runemetrics is it's an experience and drop tracker that you have to pay for. I'm not even kidding. And then in 2018, I didn't do any research on this, but in 2018, they made a Rune Pass. On the RuneScape wiki, it said similar to Fortnite, and that is all I have to say. It's crazy to me, the direction that they ended up taking RuneScape and how badly it ended up turning out. And I get it, a company needs to make money, but at the end of the day, like, if old school RuneScape wasn't around, I don't think RuneScape 3 would. Like, it just doesn't have enough players. It's really not a good game, and it's just so clunky, and yeah, like the whole microtransactions and the whole combat system just ruins the game for most people, right? It's not like they're gaining new players, like they're just losing the old ones more and more as the years go on. But yeah, I was actually thinking of, giving RuneScape 3 a try. because I've always been so critical about the game, like from a fresh account, but as an Iron Man. Now, what an Iron Man is obviously it's the exact same how it is in old school, so you won't be able to use the Grand Exchange or trade other players, and you will not have access or be able to use any microtransactions or any of the overpowered things. However, you will still have to deal with the evolution of combat, all of the new graphical changes, stuff like that. You could still buy, like, I think rune coins or the rune metrics, so they will still get you with some microtransactions. But I was thinking of honestly trying to do a RuneScape 3 Iron Man and seeing how the game actually is without all of the bullshit. But I've been thinking about that for a couple of years now, but I just can't do it. Whenever I try and look at the game, too much has literally changed. I was watching a friend's video the other day, and the video was called like 600 hours for this sword, and yeah, like this sword, I'm not even sure what it was. You needed like level 110 smithing, a bunch of bullshit. I don't even know what it was, but I was just like, I don't even know what's happening. Any of this video, I have no idea what's happening. So it might be very interesting to kind of start a RuneScape 3 Iron Man and just kind of see how far we can go with it. And I think when you start from a fresh account, maybe the combat system will make more sense instead of just being maxed, and then you get an ability bar. Maybe you can learn the ability bar as you go. I don't know, it's one of those weird things. Well, thank God for old school RuneScape, but yeah, this is honestly how they killed an MMO in one update. Thank you guys for watching the video. I will catch you in the next one. See ya later.